read your records or summarize things, they have access to the records and they've read them already. We will be asking you questions about context or things that might not be stated in your report about information or impressions that you have. But I did want to just let you know that for your answers so that we can maximize the testimony and hopefully minimize some interruptions today. Can you do that for me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. You were retained in this case as an independent investigator. What does that mean?
Basically, I have no stake in the outcome, is probably the best way to say it. I'm not affiliated with anybody involved in the investigation, and so how I see it is I can look at what's presented to me with no interest, no motive for making an outcome the way it is.
Do you serve as an independent investigator for other entities on payroll?
I do.
Have you ever investigated matters for the city of Scottsdale before?
Yes.
About how many times?
You know, I started in, I think the first investigation I had was in 2012. I would say, give or take, 12 to 13 over that 8-year time span.
Have you been asked to investigate high-ranking city officials in the past?
Yes.
Have you ever sustained the finding of misconduct against a high-ranking city official before?
Yes.
You understand that part of the reason the city hires you is so that we can have an independent view of the facts. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Do you have any financial incentive whatsoever to find or excuse any kind of wrongdoing?
No. No, there's nothing. It doesn't matter. My outcome has no impact on anything financially.
With respect to this case, has anyone from the city ever tried to influence you or somehow taint or in any way determine the outcome or predetermine the outcome of your investigation?
No.
Do you have any personal foreknowledge of Commander Minor or any bias toward him?
No, this is, I assume he's a gentleman sitting next to his attorney. This is the first time I've even met him.
Okay. And in fact, it's the first time you've even met me, is that right?
Yes, just about everybody in the room except for Ms. Brown.
You were given broad authority in this investigation, is that right?
Yes.
You understood that you were allowed to speak with anybody you wanted to speak to.
Yes.
You were allowed to expand your investigation to include other subjects or targets if you felt that necessary.
Yes.
Were you paid by the hour for your work in this case?
Yes.
So in fact, if you interviewed more people or expanded the investigation, you would have gotten paid more, is that right?
That is correct.
So you had no financial incentive to minimize or limit your investigation in any way?
No, I mean, if I wanted to increase my billables, I certainly could have broadened it if I felt it was what I wanted to.
Throughout your investigation, have you felt fully empowered to follow wherever the evidence led you?
Yes.
I understand that for your investigation, you conducted interviews of Chief Rothbell, Chief Pop, Sergeant Lewis, and Sergeant Goldahar, is that right?
Yes.
Did you conduct formal interviews of anyone else?
I did not.
Did you conduct informal interviews of anyone?
I did not.
Did you have any off-the-record statements regarding this case with any of the people you interviewed?
You know, probably the closest and not really would be Sherry Scott, but it was really more insofar as how's it coming? Do you need anything? We're preparing our response. We're getting it to you, that kind of thing.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
My question was whether she had conducted any informal interviews.
I thought you, I apologize if I heard wrong. I thought your question was, did she have any off-the-record conversations with anyone she interviewed? Is that not your question?
That could have been my question.
Okay, well, I mean, and nothing factual. I mean, certainly when they would come into the room, we would talk a little bit, and I would let them know what I was doing and who I was. But as far as any factual discussion pertaining to this case, it was always on tape.
And your previous answer, you referred to City Attorney Sherry Scott, is that right?
Yes,
And my understanding is from your answer that she only spoke with you about just status and timing?
yeah, procedural issues, yeah, but nothing factual.
During the interviews that you conducted with Chief Rodbell, Chief Top, Sergeant Lewis, and Sergeant Bolivar, each of them had a right to have counsel or a representative present when they spoke with you, is that right?
Yes,
Did any of them have counsel or a representative present when they spoke with you?
they did not.
In addition to eliciting verbal answers in an interview, you also are in the unique opportunity of judging body language, tone, inflection, that kind of thing. Did you conduct the interviews with the 4 witnesses in this case in person?
I did, all of them,
Okay. So you had the opportunity to observe body language, tone, and inflection.
yes.
In your professional judgment, did any of the witnesses appear at any time as if they were holding something back?
No,
Were they fully forthcoming with all of your questions?
yes,
Freewheeling, fully cooperative?
yes.
Do you have an understanding of how you came to be hired in this case?
Sherry what she usually does will send me an email saying something to the effect of, I have an investigation, do you have the time to handle it? And I'm sure she did something along those lines in this case. And then we usually will have a phone call, and as I recall, she told me that there had been a lawsuit and then an agreement was reached. I don't know if she went into the details because I was given a copy of the agreement. And so that's how I learned. I believe they dismissed the lawsuit, and as part of the agreement, I would be the independent investigator to look into how these investigations were handled, and as part of that, each party would be given an opportunity to provide a response, or maybe not a response,